Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Legacy, the podcast where we delve into the stories that shape our lives and the lessons we carry forward. I'm your host, Cedric D. Nelson, and I'm excited to embark on this journey of discovery, growth, and inspiration with you. Whether you're seeking motivation, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, Life, Lessons, and Legacy is here to accompany you on your quest for fulfillment and purpose. So sit back, open your mind, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Life Lessons and Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Cedric D. Nelson, and today I'm honored to have the host, Mr. James White. Mr. White, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good, Sid. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. I'm
Good,
excited about
good.
this episode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to be on here with you. Glad to be on here with you.
And so I was going to wait to after the podcast to say this, but James is one of my classmates, been knowing him forever. I basically we grew up together, I guess, because we're classmates. So great
Definitely.
guy. I'm excited to hear his story. I think this is going to be great. So, all right. So I'm going to start off with tell me about your background. Where are you from? And I know, but let the listeners know.
Definitely. Well, hey, I'm from actually Sid's hometown, Oxford, Mississippi, born and raised. I'm straight out of Spring Hill. That's my neighborhood where I was from, and definitely graduated from Oxford High School. And Sid and I graduated with classmates in class of '97 in here. So good stuff, man. Glad to be on the podcast with you, brother.
All right, I appreciate it, man. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm telling you, if you get me and James in the room, we're gonna talk. We're gonna do nothing else. We people part. We love people. We're gonna talk. So this should be
Yes,
good.
sir.
All right. So my next question. So give me a little bit about your, I guess, education and career background.
Well, it's funny that you say that. Like I said, said earlier, I graduated from Oxford High School, and after I graduated from high school, I went on down to Hines Community College
Mm-hmm.
and did 2 years down there, and then after I did 2 years, I went on to the military. Shortly after that, wound up doing 22 years in the military. While I was in, wound up getting my bachelor's and master's degree while I was in the military. I got my bachelor's in management. Got my master's in management as well, with a concentration in human resources.
Okay.
So, and then I'm actually went into program management as a career after the military, and now work for the federal government as a program manager, and that's what I'm currently doing now.
That's a blessing, man. A blessing. I think I told you earlier. They don't know, but I was telling both of my kids are thinking about joining the military. My daughter wants to be an attorney, and my son wants to go into basically operations management. So it's crazy how life works. That now we're having this conversation. Of course, I have you sit down and have a conversation with my children, just trying to figure it out, because I know when I was in high school, all they ever told us was go to school, get a good education, and you'll get a good job. Well, now that I'm older, I realize that they didn't mention that they will also give you student loan debt.
Exactly.
The education wasn't free. So
It
looking
was
back,
not.
looking back, the military would have been perfect, because they're going to train me for the career that I'm in, and I'm getting it for free. So
Exactly. And believe it or not, when I believe it or not, it's one of those things when you do go in and you didn't realize how fortunate you are going into it, because of course most people are afraid or nervous about going into the military, but not realizing that you're learning lifelong skills
mm-hmm,
that will carry over into your life after the military.
mm-hmm,
And not only that, they're going to pay for you while you go to school. So, and of course, it's tuition is 100% free. They take care of all of that. So it's just about choices. While you in, you take advantage of it, of course, because everything is an option. They
mm-hmm.
give you the option to go to school. So especially when I was in and I had a lot of my troops, I was a big advocate for school, because where you going to go where you're going to pay you to do a job and pay for your school
Mm-hmm.
and give you skills after the military. So it's kind of and then not only that, what they don't tell you is that now when you go in, they actually, with the post 9/11 GI Bill, they pay for your sons or your kids' college, sons or daughters' college as
Really?
well. So yeah, so my son is getting ready to go off to college, and his college is completely paid for because I enrolled in the post 9/11 GI Bill. So
Wow.
and he's going into Virginia, out of state.
Yeah.
Currently living in Georgia now, but he's going off to college in James Madison University, and I don't pay anything for it. It's all covered by the post 9/11 GI Bill.
Congratulations, bro. But that's
That
it. And you know, we'll talk about legacy and stuff later, but that's part of your legacy. Because not only did you do
that's
something to help you, you did something to help your legacy, you know, your next generation.
exactly
And, and I
exactly.
and I don't think the military is preached enough in school. I know, like again, when I was there, I think I told you before, you know, my father wasn't really in my life. So the only advice
Yeah.
I got about the military was from the movie Boys in the Hood. The guy,
Yeah.
you know, he said he asked about, he's like, no, it's no place for a black man or something. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I went to college,
Exactly.
you know, and looking back,
Exactly.
I could be retired now. You
Exactly.
know?
And you'll be amazed at how many of people that went in and got out the military and are regretting it, because it was like, man, if I would have stayed in 20, I could have been getting a retirement right now. And they're like 40, 42, 46,
Yeah,
and they're regretting it.
yeah.
So, but no, it's just about, of course, it was sacrifices that you make with
Oh yeah,
anything. But in the end, it definitely, for me, it was definitely life changing.
yeah.
Definitely.
Well, you think about this, James. Where else can you go retire at 42 with a full
Yeah.
career, all the training, and see the
Yeah.
world? That's one of my kids' biggest things. They're like, you know, Dad, I just want to see the world. I want to see something outside of here. So you're paid to see the world.
Exactly, exactly. And I was we were kind of mentioning that earlier, because I was reminding said that when I came in, I went straight overseas and lived in Japan for 12 years, and then went over to Europe and did another 3 years. So I wound up doing several years overseas,
Mhm.
and seeing the world while in the entire time. So I didn't come back to the States until I was like 14 years in the military, and
Wow.
then I wound up retiring at 22. So at
Wow.
22 years. So I mean, all that time I was paid to live
Hmm.
in a different country. So
Hmm.
how many opportunities you get to see Japan, live in the culture of Italy and
Right.
Europe, and Poland, and all these different countries that I've definitely been in and lived in. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a great once in a lifetime experience. I'll
Yeah.
tell anybody
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I mean, just I tell my kids just the culture and just the perspective that you get, because you see Oxford. We both grew up in Oxford. You know, you see
Correct.
Oxford, and Oxford is
Yeah.
Oxford. You know, or
Opposite is opposite.
yeah, you know. So, but when
Yeah.
you go and see how other cultures live, and you have just that appreciation, I guess. Some things we take for granted here in the U.S. that is
Definitely.
a luxury in another country. You know, and
Yes, yes. Yeah, because like you said, Oxford is Oxford, because for those who don't know on your podcast, I come from a dirt road in Oxford,
mhm,
Mississippi. So,
mhm,
and I kind of live by that, because that keeps me grounded.
yep,
Because no matter where I've lived or gone in my life, I always kind of tell people that, hey, I come from very humble means
mhm,
in rural Mississippi, Oxford, on a dirt road.
mhm,
And so I try to tell people this all the time, that, hey, where you come from does not determine where you're going to go in
mhm,
life.
mhm,
So it's about choices, like we talked about earlier. It's
yep,
about your choices, and just as long as you continue to make good choices, throughout your life, you'll definitely be successful. So
yeah, yeah. I agree. I tell people all the time, mistakes are part of it. You welcome them
yeah,
because that's how you learn. But you got to
definitely,
surround yourself with good people. We'll talk about it more, but like you say,
yeah,
if I want to be a doctor, I probably hang around other people that's in the medical field. I
exactly,
don't need to hang around
exactly,
street pharmacists. That's not gonna really help me.
exactly.
you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you definitely want to hang around people, that like-minded people, as we would call it. Yes,
Yes, yes, yes.
like-minded people that are trying to excel and do well in life. So
Yeah, I agree.
definitely, your crowd definitely lets you know who you are. So
Yeah, definitely. All right. So my
yes, sir.
next goal. So next question. What are your goals? I guess goals you're coming up professionally and personally. I guess.
Well, and for me, personal goals, just to be honest, man, is to be the best man, the best father, and best husband that I could be,
Hmm.
personally. Because I did have my father in my life,
Hmm.
my entire life, and And my father would always tell me that, hey, every child deserves a father in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think that's one of the things um, that is lacking in a lot of our youth today is they don't have good father figures
Mm-hmm.
in their lives. And so that's one of my goals is to be a good example of a man and a father figure
Mm-hmm.
for younger people and throughout my life, not just young people, but people in general,
Mm-hmm.
because you definitely have to be that example. So, and then personally, I you know it. I ponder over that question for as personally goes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my professional goals.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's more we do more on the lines of short term, midterm, and long term goals
Okay.
for me.
Okay.
That's kind of how we approach that.
Okay.
For me, short term, me Sid and I, we kind of talked about this earlier because right now I'm a government contractor and I have an opportunity to transition over to be a government employee in HO4, and so within the next probably 5 to 6 months, I'll be probably transitioning over to that for more of a long term job opportunity. Um, my midterm goals, I think, within the next 12 years, like I was telling said,
Mm-hmm.
to be retired in about
Uh-huh.
the next 12 years. That's my midterm.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, retire around about 57, and then long term to be completely retired and not work for anyone.
Amen.
So those, yes. So those are kind of my goals that I planned professionally and personal goals in
Okay.
regards to myself.
Okay. And we were talking about earlier, like some of those things, like the goals that we have now, we could have never had those goals had we not experienced the things we experienced in life.
Definitely.
Like you say, somebody, we'll talk about it later, but somebody pouring into me, somebody pouring into you, telling you these
Yes.
things at a younger age where you kind of like a
Yes.
sponge, you taking everything in, and you're like, okay, so I'm not supposed to work my whole life because I'm sure you're the same. Like we both come from Oxford. I know people
Exactly.
who will never retire. Like it's
Exactly.
not even an option that like to
Yes.
even think about. Like 70 some years old and still gonna be swinging
Working.
a hammer, doing whatever whatever it is. And I tell people every
Yeah.
time I go to Walmart, James, and I respect the greeters because I respect everybody, but I say, okay, that's my motivation. I'm not greeting anybody at
Ex-
Walmart. you know,
Exactly,
you know.
exactly. And it's funny that you say that because you know I we like you said we both come from the same hometown and everything. And we see people all the time that we know that are working pretty much paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's about your trajectory in life. A lot of times when your choices when you're younger and you don't have and the funny thing to say, I don't even blame them. It's
Right.
the environment.
That's
I
it.
think
Mm-hmm.
it's the environment of that, because if you don't know any better, you
Right.
can't do better.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of that and not to knock any of, because I am very proud of the people in my hometown, because
Mm-hmm.
I know they were hardworking individuals that
Oh
do.
yeah.
But it's hard to tell somebody to go out and become successful when you don't have anybody to see that is successful,
Mm-hmm.
because they're accustomed to well enough.
Yep.
When you're
Yep.
accustomed to well enough just by getting by, just because, hey, that's what I'm accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
That's what life's about. That's all you see is working, because of my mother, my father, my grandfather all work
Mm-hmm.
paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have somebody, and it goes back to what I was trying to kind of saying earlier in regards to those father figures and those mentors that, like you just said, that pour into you, that
Mm-hmm.
tell you, hey, you can do better, you
Mm-hmm.
can be better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to tell somebody who doesn't have that.
Right.
And that's why I'm big on making sure that these young men, young women have somebody that can pour into them and tell them,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you can be better than this.
Mm-hmm.
You are smart enough, you
Mm-hmm.
are good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think they get told that enough to get out of that environment. Because if you don't break the cycle, because think about it, see, if we didn't have that,
Mm-hmm.
we could have been right there with them.
Yep.
If we didn't have somebody pointing to us, telling us,
Yep.
"Hey, you can do this.
Yep.
You can get out of here and go and go be successful."
Yep.
So it just becomes a an atmosphere of well enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
tell people, like you grew up on a dirt road in Oxford. And I grew up in the projects in Oxford.
yes,
So like there was, in my neighborhood, there were no politicians, there was no doctors, no lawyers, no
yeah,
business owners. There was the person that
no,
sold drugs. There was the person that wanted to be a gangster.
exactly.
The person that
Yep,
fought all the time, the person that sold
exactly,
bootleg cigarettes and whatever. You had that environment. The most successful person in my neighborhood probably was the guy that worked for like the trash company or for the city.
exactly.
So when I
Yep,
when I did start a business when I got older, I didn't even know who to go to talk to about taxes, accountants, financial
yeah,
planners,
yeah,
not even LLCs, even how to start a business. So you
exactly.
think about
Yep,
it, you have
yep,
to go out and seek it. Luckily now they have the internet, so you can look all this stuff up. But when you and I
exactly.
were coming up, you had to go
No,
to
we
get
didn't
the
have
yeah, yeah.
that.
If you knew somebody had some encyclopedias, you might be able to go get
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. We were all about the books, you know.
yeah, or go to a library.
And
Yeah.
it's fun. It's funny you say that because you are, you definitely made me think of something. You are exactly right. The most things that we had in our town, think about it. Majority of the people they look forward to either working for the campus,
Yep.
the
Oh
city,
yeah.
or in
Yep.
the factory.
Yep.
Those were the three things that Oxford had going.
And
And
that
so
makes you
think
make it.
about it. And that's if you can get hired out there, you know, and, you
Yeah,
know,
and
and
keep the
so
job.
and keep the job. So you got to think about it when that's all you have to see and do,
Mm-hmm.
because you got to think about it. Say, I did not know or see, like you said, any politicians or leaders that are
Mm-mm.
minorities until I
Right.
went down to Jackson to Hines.
Yeah.
Man, it was a totally different world because in our town we didn't have
Mm-mm.
minorities that was in power
No.
or ran or any kind of
Mm-hmm.
city council or anything like that. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have it.
Mm-mm.
So when I went down to Jackson, of course, it's minority. Jackson is minority. It is majority minority
Yeah.
city,
Yeah.
but there you've seen the mayors that were black.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the councilmen there. So when you don't have that examples to see, it makes it really difficult for
Yep.
you to be like, man, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said, fortunately, that's why I'm big on, like I said, with fathers
Mm-hmm.
that are being those that are feeding into these kids to tell them they can be more.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I'll go on to the next question, but just to piggyback off that, that's why I think my grandmother raised me. And my
Yeah,
grandmother had maybe a second grade education. But man, when I tell you she poured into me every day, she always told me, like, you don't have to be like your father. You can be
yeah,
better than that. You don't have to be like any people around here. Like you be
that,
you. If you really
yeah,
appreciate what I've done for you, you go out and be successful.
yes,
Like literally wanted nothing from me other than for me to be successful. That was her reward, just to go off,
exactly,
be the best version of yourself. And I say
yes,
having people like that, we talked about it before, but even with my grandmother pouring into me, and we'll, like I said, go on to the next question, but even meeting Mr. Reese in high school, because
man,
he was the
yes,
first black person
that,
that
yes,
man that was like a principal, and he was
exactly.
like that I guess I almost like a secondary father figure, because if you
Who?
yeah,
Yes,
because he would get on to you,
yes,
Nelson, let me talk to you
exactly.
for a minute, and you see him coming,
Yes,
you're like,
yes,
I don't want to
yes.
disappoint this guy because he's gonna be on my butt. So
Exactly, exactly. And he was one of the few that we did have that was all about making sure, and it's funny that you bring up Mr. Reese because and I'm gonna put it out there, say,
uh-huh.
for those
Yeah,
who don't know, we
yeah,
have our class reunion coming up here next weekend. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So we'll get a lot of us that graduated in '97 together,
Mm-hmm.
and he's one of our actual guest of honors, Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Reese, which
Mm-hmm.
was our high school principal. And he's one of the few that actually, like said, kind of alluded to that, poured into us as black young men. Because, and that's one of the things that I'm going to definitely make sure I let him know
Mm-hmm.
is that that was a thing that he told me that stuck with me my entire life.
Okay.
Is that I was at a football game, and back in the 90s, I used to have the Jerry Curl guys. I'll put it out there. I used to have a Jerry Curl, and at that time, I had just cut it off. I just cut it off, and I would start rocking it because back then that was when Jordan was the man, and we started rocking the ball
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
kept it.
yeah.
And so I just cut my Jerry Curl off, and I went to a football game, and Mr. Reese was like, "White, you never get a second time to make a first impression. You looking sharp there, young man."
See
And
that?
he had introduced me to some sophisticated lady that that was one. I think she was a school board or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, he introduced me to it and said, "White, don't ever forget, you never get a second time to make a first impression."
Mm-hmm.
And that is always my entire life stuck with me. And I'm
See?
gonna definitely make sure I mention that to him at the class reunion because that
Oh
was
yeah.
it has served me well.
Yeah.
It had.
Yeah. And it meant something sure coming from him. Because again, he
Yes.
didn't have to do anything for he didn't have to point to
No.
us. He just
Exactly.
did. Whenever
Yeah.
I wasn't a troublemaker in school, but if I did have any issues that were remotely close to being in trouble, that's who came.
Yes.
Mr. Reese came.
Exactly.
Nelson,
He
let me
all.
talk to you for a minute. I'm like,
Yep.
I'm in
Always kept
trouble.
us out. Yep.
Yeah. You see him coming in the hall, you're like, okay, let me get myself together.
He was that guy that
He
always took
was.
care of. He was
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah.
And man, he's definitely an awesome guy that I'm so glad we were able to get him to come to the reunion. I look forward to. I'm sure we both look forward to
Oh
seeing
yeah.
him and
Yeah.
chopping it up with him and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but that's
yeah,
awesome, man.
yeah. Like that first impression, like even with Reese, I remember, and we'll move on. Him like wearing the suits all the time, and I'm like, so
Yeah.
yeah. He was like, you have to dress for success, and I'm like, I got 2 pair of pants and 3 shirts, Mr. Reese. It's kind of hard to do that, but
Kind of hard to do that.
yeah, but he made he made you like, okay, even if you got 3 shirts, 2 pair of pants, you make sure they're ironed, you make sure you're presentable,
Yep.
yeah. And I'm like,
Exactly.
okay, that's the stuff that we need. And
Yes.
that's the whole purpose of, writing a book and everything, just trying to mentor the next generation because a lot of people
Yes.
don't have anybody positive pouring into
Exactly.
them. So
Exactly. I think that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Definitely.
yeah,
So,
Mr.
but yeah,
Reese.
good stuff, man. That's awesome.
All right. So my next question. So what are some life lessons you've learned? I know we've been out of school for a few years now, so I'm sure you've learned some.
Man, I have definitely, and it's funny, I think the biggest thing, well, I've definitely learned many life lessons, but I think the main one that really sticks out to me is to treat the janitor as well as you would the CEO.
That's it.
I think that right there has stuck with me because one thing about it, because you never know if you're dealing with an angel in disguise, brother.
You never
Because
know.
my thing, I'm telling you, man, because there's so many people that I've seen throughout my life that has treated, people that may not have as much or done as much
Mm-hmm.
and be the main people that you need in the end. So you definitely
Mm-hmm.
have to be careful how you treat people
Mm-hmm.
because it may be the same people you need when you're coming down.
That's it.
So I
Yeah.
definitely that's probably one of the best lessons that I've learned throughout
Mm-hmm.
uh, my life, man.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
because like my grandma taught me that early on. Well, of course, we grew up in that environment anyway. But she said people are just people. She said even as
Yeah,
far as a man, she said no, you're a man just like he's a man. So you give everybody the same amount of respect.
exactly.
And like you say, of course, if you're growing up, I'm growing up around the janitor. I'm growing up around those people. So those are people pouring into me. So it makes me have a whole different level of respect for them because these people, again, they don't have to. These are the people that see me outside and say like, hey,
Exactly.
don't go with that group because you're not like them. Those are the ones that see you and like they tell you you're a little bit different than them, so you shouldn't be hanging with that crowd. Yeah, they're doing X, Y, and Z, but you're not
Yeah,
like them. So
exactly. Exactly. That was always one of the things, man, that definitely because even to this day, we have of course I work in a kind of a classified building or whatever, and we have
mhm,
some janitors who come in. And
mhm,
the one thing that I always make it a point to do is to thank them for what they do.
that's
And,
it.
and because my thing is me and Sid was kind of talking about this. It takes nothing to be kind,
Nothing at
nothing,
all.
and,
Nothing.
and, and just to see how those people are doing, and
Hmm.
and just to make sure that hey, you're appreciative of what
Hmm.
they're doing for you.
Hmm.
Even though they may think you may Other people may think it's small,
Yeah.
but because I make it a point to go there and say, hey, thank you for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And they be like, oh man. And one thing about it, they love that I remember their names.
That's it. Yep.
Man, remember that name, and it goes such a long way
Mm-hmm.
because you are showing an effort
That's it.
to get to know them.
Yep.
I don't care how high up you go in life. Remember to stay humble.
Yep.
Stay humble.
Because
So,
they're still people. You know, they're still people. They still have children. They still have spouses. They still have life going on, bills and everything. And like you say, it takes, like you said earlier, it takes nothing to be kind to somebody.
nothing.
You know,
Nothing.
you don't know what kind of
Yep.
day they have. I tell you, something funny about that. I used to tell my kids, like the little kids that run around school that the kids are messing with, don't mess with them.
Yes.
Be nice to them, because that day
Exactly.
when that joke about to lose it, you want him to,
He gonna want to he
yeah,
want to skip you.
yeah, you want to be like, hey, Sarah, and CJ, don't come to school today. You know,
Yeah, you was the one who treated me nice. I ain't gonna get
right?
you.
Don't come to school Wednesday at 9 o'clock. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, all jokes aside,
Yeah.
but I tell them, I said, because you never know how much of an impact you're having in a person's life. You know,
Exactly.
that may be the only kind word they hear all day. You don't know what people go home
Exactly.
to. You know.
Man, yes, exactly, man. It takes nothing to be kind, man. And I live by it, brother. So I make it a point, man, to always, I don't care
Mm-hmm.
how bad of a day I have, man, is to
Mm-hmm.
make sure. It is even to the point that if I don't come in and speak to the guys, they be like, hey, what's going
What's
on with
wrong with
you?
you?
Yeah. It just be like, hey, I may have some on my mind, but
Mm-hmm.
it's such a habit for me to go in there and check on my guys and the people around me
Mm-hmm.
to where they expect it,
Yeah.
and when it's not given. And that's what I would tell anybody
Mm-hmm.
is make being kind a habit,
That's it.
because when you do that,
Mm-hmm.
it changes people's lives and you don't
Yeah.
even know it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm gonna give you one story before we get out there, because
Oh, you're
my
fine.
prior military, you
Mm-hmm.
know of course, on the subject we were just on, uh, it was a big ramp uptick in suicides in
Okay.
the military with our guys who had come back from deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And when one of my guys was actually, potentially, he nobody knew it, was thinking about committing suicide,
Okay.
and didn't know, because I seen a change in his attitude. So I
Mm-hmm.
asked him, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, are you okay? You doing all right today?" And it just took that, and the guy just opened up,
Mm-hmm.
because he was a strange guy, and he
Mm-hmm.
just opened up about the stuff that's going on with him. He was thinking about doing this and thinking about doing that, and of course they train you on, when you have those type situations in the military, that you stay with them, you talk to them, and
Mm-hmm.
you make sure you don't let them out your sight.
Mm-hmm.
And see, and that guy wound up staying in the military and going on to having a long career. But he was thinking about actually literally committing suicide, and he had put him on suicide watch and all this. But yeah, all of
Wow.
this stuff. And so by me just asking him, "Hey, how you doing today?"
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, he was an awkward guy, and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
didn't talk to him very
Right.
much. And so, and by me doing that, he just opened up and started talking about it. And of course, we got him the help he needed,
Mm-hmm.
and we was able to save that gentleman's life.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, man, it takes nothing to just
Nothing.
ask somebody, "Hey, how
Yep.
are you okay?
Yep.
Everything going all right?"
Yep. Because
And it changes things.
because you don't know
Yeah,
what they're going through. You, like I say, you don't know when you run to people. You don't know that some people, the most positive interactions they may have all day may take place at work, or you saying good morning or how are you doing.
exactly.
You know,
Yes,
we go
yes,
home to wife and kids and happiness, I guess. But some people
exactly.
that don't, and like
They
especially
don't.
when people are awkward. I tell people, my kids all the time, because I work in the behavior field. When
Yes,
people are awkward, you treat them, I guess, even gentler, because
gentler
yeah,
does. Yes,
because they don't process things the way you do.
exactly.
Like things that maybe seem simple to you, like you having a group of friends to hang with. Both of us in high school had
Yes,
a group of friends.
yes.
We talked to everybody, we hung with everybody.
Exactly.
But there
Yep,
were
yep.
kids who we went to school with who didn't really hang with anybody. And you
Exactly.
and I both would make sure we spoke to them. How
To
you
them,
doing?
yes.
What's going on?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know,
It was just those, but because I tell guys all the time is that, hey, you never know what's going on in somebody else's household. You
never know.
never know, because they come in and put on a good front because you come to
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yep.
But they could be, they could be getting, beaten up. They could have domestic violence. They could have
Yep.
anything going on in their household,
Yep.
and their only outlet is work.
Yeah.
And then that's to get away. And then when they get there, they so traumatized or whatever. And then by you just ask them, "Hey, you all right?"
Mm-hmm.
I have more people. I'm gonna tell you, said I have more people come by my desk and just sit and just talk to me
Mm-hmm.
because I am that guy that just I'm always a happy-go-lucky guy that
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
how busy I am. If you
Uh-huh.
come talk to me and say you got something going on, hey, what you got?
That's it.
Because I know it could be, I've been through where it could be somebody who's going
Mm-hmm.
through something or could be thinking about something or hurting themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
by me taking that time and talking to them, it could change their life.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll challenge everybody out there on your
Mm-hmm.
podcast that, hey, if you do, or if you do have somebody that you think is awkward or think somebody is reserved to themselves, go out and talk to them,
Yeah.
see how they doing. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Because I work with a lot of engineers, man, and those are the most awkward people, man, in my career field. And because that when those smart guys are
They're really
socially
smart. Yeah.
awkward, man, they real smart, and
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have social cues, and they be
Right.
just off, and so. And those are the ones that I always go over and make sure. Because one guy love math, I go over there and find the hardest math problem for that guy to figure out.
Yeah.
And it's just
Made his
stuff like
day.
made his day. Oh man, he came over and talked to me, and I saw this,
Yeah.
and it's just little stuff like that
Yeah.
man changes those guys. Man, they be smiling, come talk to me, and
Yeah.
now these are all engineers that everybody else be like, man, these dudes is too awkward.
Right.
I thrive with them.
But hey, man, that's guys' work. I tell you all some of my
Yeah,
guys' work. It's guys' work.
yeah,
Just go out. Like again, just be a light. Be a light.
yes,
Just be a light. That's
yes,
all you have to do is just when you walk into a room and people are excited to see you. My grandma used to say that like
yeah,
you walk into a room, you want people happy to see you. You don't want people being like, oh God, here
exactly.
comes Sid. You know.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
it's a blessing, man.
It's a blessing, definitely, brother. It's a blessing, man. So
All right.
for
All
sure,
right.
man.
So my next question is, who has
Yes.
been the single most inspirational person in your life, past or present?
Oh man, this one right here, man. Ah, I tell you, man, I pondered, and it was an easy answer for me, man. It's
Okay.
definitely my father, without a doubt. The
Okay.
single most inspirational person to me, definitely my father, man. He was that guy that really he took in, and just to kind of give you a background of how my father was, man.
Mm-hmm.
My father and my mother's mother and father kind of, it was a kind of domestic violence type relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
my so they separated, and so
Okay.
my father took in. Now, mind you, my mother has 13 brothers and sisters. So my
Okay.
mother was kind of the age for most of her younger sisters' mothers. She
Yeah.
was old enough to be their mother. So,
Yeah.
but so my father took in my mother's mother and four of her siblings with
Okay.
us. Now it was four of us.
Right.
Yeah. So it
Plus
was
them.
like, yeah, plus them.
Yeah.
So mind you, now this is the type guy that he took them all in and raised them pretty much until they
Mm-hmm.
all graduated, and actually helped them to get a house on my
Okay.
dad's land and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
so, uh, but the main reason why, like I would say that my father was the single most inspiration, because he was always the one that told me, regardless of what went on in my life, that son, you can do anything you put your
Mm-hmm.
mind to.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of alluded to this earlier, that you have to pour into people. You have to have that male
Yep.
father figure, or that figure in your life that tells you these things as men.
Mm-hmm.
And not to knock out women,
Right.
in this thing, but because I tell that there's plenty of women that can raise
Mm-hmm.
men. They can
Mm-hmm.
raise them.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I will definitely say, that a woman cannot teach a man how to be a man.
That's it.
That's the difference.
That's it.
You can
Yeah.
raise a man,
Yeah.
yeah, and
A
do
great one.
great,
Yeah.
a great one. But you can't teach a man how to navigate life
Mm-hmm.
as a man.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that a woman can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have a strong father figure in your life that tells you these things, that hey, you can do anything. Because
Mm-hmm.
I remember one day, because my father was my hero. That
Yeah.
dude, that was my hero. So I would tell him, hey, man, I'm gonna grow up and be just like you. You know what
Hmm.
my dad told me?
What
Like,
is that?
nah, son, don't be like me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, be better than me. And that right there,
Mm-hmm.
that right there stuck because I was like, Dad, I'm gonna work at. He worked at Emerson for 30 plus
Mm-hmm.
years. You remember Emerson at
Yeah, I
that
remember.
option?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he worked in there for 30 plus years, and I said, I'm gonna go work at Emerson just like he was like, son, don't be like me. You go out there, you too smart for that. He
Mm-hmm.
said, you can go, you can be anything you want to be, and he was like, be better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that also stuck with me throughout my life. That that to this day, he's always told me, son, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I feel that every child needs to hear to be poured into them,
Yep.
because we have so many kids out there that are told that, hey, they're not smart,
Mm-hmm.
they're not pretty enough,
Mm-hmm.
they're not educated enough. These are things that these verbal words are, it destroys our
Yep.
kids,
Mm-hmm.
confidence. It
Mm-hmm.
destroys it. And
Mm-hmm.
if we don't instill these things into our kids, telling them that, hey, you are handsome, you can do anything,
Mm-hmm.
you are beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
you know they will have we'll have another generation that's lost because
Yep.
they won't have the confidence to go out and be that
Yep.
doctor or
Yep.
be that lawyer, you
Yep.
know. And see, and that's great that you said that your daughter wants to be a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
because hey, you've instilled in her that she can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You've
Yeah.
told her, "Son, you can do anything, man."
That's
And
it.
that's what they need. And to hear that from her father,
Right.
man, that's a blessing,
Yeah.
because a lot of our youth does not have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You
but
know, yeah. James, I coached like I said, I've coached my kids since they've been like 5. And whatever's what they do. If they throwing rocks, I'm like, I'm gonna be a coach. I'm out there.
yes,
And
yeah,
so
yeah, definitely,
I coached them in track. And I coached 10 through 14, 10 through 15-year-old girls. So my daughter
yeah,
was in that age bracket at the time, and my son was also. So I remember talking to those girls, if I coached them, I told the parents, like, I'm gonna talk to them like I talked to my daughter. I'm
yes,
pouring into them. So man, it was so
exactly,
crazy. I would give them all these lessons, like, hey, don't just be out here flying yourself around in front of these boys, and
yeah,
be a
yeah,
lady and this is that. And it was so
exactly,
crazy that once the season's over, these kids are basically giving me hugs and crying. And like this
wow,
has been years. These kids are graduating high school, and I still run into them like, "Hey, coach said," and
yeah,
you remember the time you told me X, Y, and Z? And because like again, it goes back to what you said. You don't know who doesn't have anybody pouring into them.
yes,
You know,
yes, exactly, man. And one of the things that I learned from the military is that, man, you never know who's watching you.
that's it.
You know, honestly, you never
Mm-hmm.
know. And so really you have to always be above reproach,
Yep.
because you never, we thinking that we just out here, just walking around, but you got a kid that's watching me and that looks up to you,
Yeah.
and that's like, man, well, hey, Mr. Said does it, or Mr. James does,
Mm-hmm.
and you never know who's looking at you, because we are role models,
Yeah.
whether you want to be it or not. You're a
We
role
are.
model
Yep.
to these kids, because
Mm-hmm.
they are watching what you do,
Yep.
what you say,
Yep.
and like, and it's funny because I ain't never been a big child, because I'm one of the few guys, man. I don't cuss, I don't do all the
Right.
smoking, I don't do the
Yeah.
drinking stuff, and they be like, man, why you? Because I feel, to each his own who do.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I feel like I have a bigger vocabulary, that if I get frustrated, I don't have to cuss you out.
Right.
I'm gonna let you know how I feel without having to do all that.
Right.
But that's why, like I said, you have to be mindful of who your surrounding is,
Mm-hmm.
because you got people who are always looking at you
Mm-hmm.
and watching your every move. Because I know I got an 18-year-old in the back that's watching everything I do. I
Every
guarantee
move, huh?
every word, every move, and everything I say, he watching.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Dad, you did it. And so you got to be mindful, and not to say I'm not perfect by no
Right.
means. I
Neither
mean,
neither one. Right.
we are human,
Mm-hmm.
and we all make mistakes. But I try daily to
Mm-hmm.
be the best father, the best man, the best husband that I could be for my
Mm-hmm.
family. And so, like I tell you, I'm not perfect, but I do. Believe me, I've learned a lot in these 20 plus years of marriage.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. We talk about this outside the pod. Yeah, man.
yes,
Marriage will definitely teach you some things. You be like, oh
yes.
God, I'm messing up.
I'm sure that's a whole nother subject we get on this marriage thing, but that's a different podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, man, it definitely takes a village, man, to raise these kids, and at the end of the day, man, we have to be accountable
We do.
for our actions
Yep, we do.
as men. We
We
do,
do.
and not saying that, hey guys, we're not gonna make mistakes, which we do,
We do.
but as long as we're trying to be that example for these kids and knowing that they're watching us, that's all we can ask.
That's all.
That's all we
To piggyback off that, I was talking about on another podcast how we had elders growing up. So I grew up in the
yeah,
projects, but we see I had my elders. If I messed up at the store, by the time I got home, somebody told my grandmother, it's probably
yes,
lights out. It's gonna be a long night.
yes,
But
yes, yes,
but the
yes,
elders, they would pour into me also. They would tell me again, like I say, don't hang with that crowd. Or if they saw me
yes,
going somewhere and knew I was going, so I didn't have any money, they may give me money. Or they would
exactly,
give me life lessons. They would tell me about, that's one reason for the podcast, because we don't really have elders in the traditional sense anymore.
yes,
Well, not as much as we used to. It used to be
exactly,
if I was somebody older than which you and I are elders now. It's crazy thinking that,
yeah,
but we are elders now.
exactly, yeah, no,
So
yeah,
we,
exactly,
but you would have in the whole community, like you say, a village would help raise your children. Not necessarily
exactly,
discipline, but just pouring into them, teaching them life lessons, whatever. And we don't really have that as much now, which is one of the reasons for the podcast, so that the younger generation can go to the podcast and listen to the wisdom from the generation before them. Because if you don't take our knowledge, you're gonna make the same mistakes we made. You could have avoided them.
exactly, exactly. I agree 110% because for me, my elders, again, I tell you, my mother had 13 brothers and sisters, and my father had 13 brothers. So mind you, I had like 100 and something first cousins.
Right, right.
really, really on
Yeah.
both my mom and dad's side. So mind
Okay.
you, my friends were my family. So when we would go over to my aunts and uncles' houses, man, we would get whoopings just like I was with my dad,
Yeah.
and it was no thing, and they ain't had to tell us because if you messed up and you go, if they one got whooping, everybody got a whooping because you should have stopped them. That's what they said.
You better be accountable. you better be accountable because everybody's getting whooping today.
Everybody getting whoopings tonight. So, but that's what I say, and I do feel, man, that I know a lot of people nowadays feel like, hey, the way we were raised with whoopings and stuff like that, because it's a softer generation or whatever, but it made us better.
It did.
If you think about it, we didn't never get no beatings,
No,
but
exactly.
we were held accountable. And that old saying, this is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you.
Yep. Didn't want to believe it back then, but it's
that isn't gonna hurt me, but it kind of let us know that, hey, baby, we love you.
Yep.
But we gotta do it because we're trying to make sure you get on the right path.
That's it.
So, but man, it's just a different generation where you can't whoop your kids, you can't do this, and it makes it difficult to put them on the right path. So you have to find other ways to keep them on path to things like that. But that's a whole nother story too that I'm sure you can elaborate on that as a big counselor.
but this thing, because I remember told somebody, my grandmother raised me, and my grandma, I've been bigger and taller than my grandma since I was about 12. But I'm not gonna curse. I'm not gonna do anything around my grandmother. Even when she was in a wheelchair, James, I was like, there go mama. But it was it's a respect. I didn't even eat. It was crazy. My grandmother got me to a point where I think I had a key when I was like 12, and I never had a curfew. So my brother lived on the other side of town, Jeff and Lee. So I would walk from my side of town to the other side, and my grandma said, "You don't have a curfew. Don't embarrass me. Don't get in trouble, and you need to be home at a decent time." Never told me what a decent time was. But I knew I was gonna be there at a decent time.
Exactly.
But it was just their respect. It wasn't that I wanted to be a bad kid, but my thing was I don't want to do anything. I appreciate her sacrifice, so I don't want to do anything to embarrass her. And this generation, like I say, is different because I mean, not getting knocked out, but they don't
they don't have that threat of I'm gonna get a spanking. I'm gonna,
Yes.
or
They,
like you
they
said, one of my cousins, and if I let one of my cousins mess up, all of us are getting a whooping.
all
So
of us.
so
So we
so
have to
let
be
me let me
accountable.
keep let me keep Johnny on
Yep.
point over here, so all of us don't get
Yep.
knocked out tonight. So
Exactly, exactly. So it's just a different because it not only taught you accountability, but it taught you to look out for each other
mm-hmm,
as a, you know.
mm-hmm,
And so when you have that, it makes you and that, and think about it, that was life lessons that we
yeah,
were being taught as kids. When you
yeah,
okay, I'm gonna be accountable for my cousin. I'm gonna look out for him, make sure he don't. So
mm-hmm,
when he does get up,
yep,
I'm gonna make sure he don't get into anything that he know he shouldn't do.
right,
And so those life lessons is difficult because now these kids, man, they beating up the parents. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
boxing them
I mean,
down
I see
in the
people
office. Yeah,
cussing them out,
yeah,
cussing their parents out, man. I mean,
right.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Life Lessons and Legacy. I hope you found our discussion thought provoking and inspiring. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to improve and reach more listeners like you. Remember, life is a journey of growth and discovery, and every experience, both the highs and the lows, contributes to the legacy we leave behind. So embrace each moment, cherish the lessons, and live with purpose. You can find more resources, including my book, Life Lessons and Legacy: How to Take Life's Lessons and Shape Your Legacy, available for purchase on my website at www.lifelessonsandlegacy.com, also available on amazon.com. On my website, you'll also discover information about my life coaching services and speaking engagements designed to help you unlock your full potential and live a life full of purpose. I'm Cedric D. Nelson. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon.